Call this meeting to order. It is Tuesday, June 24th, 2025, 11:30 a.m. and here we're just here to discuss grant funding for Calder and Avery roads. I kind of wanted to, I know we have some grant funding left over, and I kind of wanted to discuss some possible road projects that we can do up in the Calder area, whether it be the highway up there or the main road up there, or
okay.
And I know we probably need to discuss an amount and what I don't know how much it would take, what.
Sure. So to give an idea, like if we were looking at St. Joe River Road, from Calder to Avery, it's approximately 23 miles. So addressing that roadway, we wouldn't be able to address the length in its entirety. Some of the sections are better than others down there. Obviously, the very best fix would be to pulverize it and pave over the top. If we did that, depending on the cost, really it's going to be dependent, because we would have to contract this out. Anytime we did a project of this magnitude, we would have to contract it out. So depending on, the price of the mix, which is the expensive part, if it came in at $175 a ton, we would get approximately 3 miles, which isn't very far. If we did, if we're working off of, let's say it would be $1 million. So just to tell you how far that goes, it doesn't go very far. To get a good result, which would be suitable, and it would be fairly long lasting, is you could pulverize and you could do a double chip seal, which would give a nice traveling surface, which would withstand for a while. And then just to kind of give an idea of span of things, you could address approximately 12 miles for roughly $1 million. So then you can kind of use that benchmark to scale down for lengths and have an idea of what, certain amounts will get you with that. That's just using a 2-lane standard with roadway like St. Joe River Road. Some of the other areas, down there in that region, if you kind of talked about other roadways or areas, they've got some gravel roads that haven't gotten, a lot of attention. And so something could be utilized, with those as well, if you're looking for roadways in that region.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to, I know we have some grant funds available still. And I just kind of want to, because we haven't really done anything in Calder and Avery. And I would really like to, possibly use some of these grant funds, whether it, we can put a dollar amount or maybe have your lead up there go around and see what, what's definitely needed, and then maybe come back to us and then we can discuss it, because I really think we need to look at doing something up that way, so that
we do have, I know down there, one of the most mentioned issues, and that I've seen myself being down there, is there are certain segments of St. Joe River Road that are worse than others. So rather than do long lengths and miles, we could look at addressing certain segments. Some of the areas where the chip seal from 2019 is kind of separating off and kind of pancaking off, creates a very bumpy travel roadway where you can't cold patch something that's so thin. You've got to do something with a hot mix or something like that. So rechipping in that area, doing some repairs, could make some difference. There are 2 or 3 areas, one in particular where the road has sunk a little bit, and so at the speed limit that they're traveling, even if we have a slow sign, we've had vehicles have some damage where they've kind of hit it and caused some damage to the suspension of their vehicles. And so that area could be cut out and rebuilt, and it would be a shorter section. So there are lots of things that we could look into for those roadways. As far as, other areas down there, we don't have tons of pavement beyond that. I mean, there are, some of the sections that have paved roads, but the majority of the territory down there beyond the length of St. Joe River Road is going to be the gravel roads.
Yeah, and they maintain those pretty well.
To the best of their ability.
Yeah.
You can look at that. We have 107 gravel road miles right now currently in the county throughout all 4 districts. We only have in our budget $35,000 for crushed rock / base material. So you can imagine that doesn't go very far at all. So while we do a great job of grading in the spring and in the fall, that's the majority of the maintenance that they get. We, as necessary, we try to bring some material in, but we're not, for probably the last 10 years, we haven't been budgeted properly for that.
Okay.
So what happens is you start over time losing all of the road material. It just starts, going away, blowing off the road, dust, all of that. We stopped our dust mitigation, several public works directors ago when we had a drop in the budget. And so that was something that went away. The mag that we had applied, will kind of act as a binder and hold the road, and it will, over time with layers, kind of make a harder surface. It won't completely keep the road from eroding and degrading, but it does help. And so those are some of the things that we run up against with our 107 miles of roadway. So you'll see areas that are similar to, kind of anywhere that gets a lot of traffic, particularly that doesn't have the material brought in and things done, with what we should be doing. You'll see it down where it's very bony surface and you've graded all the material that you can grade and you're just trying to grade rock. And so, you can take care of some of the washboards, you can take care of some of the holes, but it's never a really good fix and it doesn't last very long.
So some stretches are hitting the bedrock surface.
A lot of our sections are, particularly the ones with higher traffic volume.
Okay.
Is there a public works prioritized list of, like, if we had money, this is the worst road in the county, this is the second worst? Is there anything?
So we've been working on putting together, and we haven't completed it, but we're like an inventory of the roads. And I'm not talking inventory of we have so many miles of this road, of, the surface condition of the road. That has not been completed yet because a lot of places will kind of contract out for help for that. And so we've been working on that internally as we have been able to over the last few years, but we don't even remotely have a complete list of that yet. We do have, it's maybe getting slightly outdated, but a capital improvement project list that is, required for anybody that applies for some of the LTAC funding. They'll ask if you have a capital improvement list. And so we do have one that we refer to, like when we applied for the chip sealing up Pine Creek. That's a question on that LTAC LRIP application. Is this project listed on your capital improvement list? And it is in fact listed on the capital improvement list. So we do have roads and projects in all 4 districts that are on that list. We do have problematic roadways that haven't had attention for years or that have failed faster than others. Some have heavier residential volume up there, and then others just have heavier traffic or heavier truck traffic. So we've got some problematic roads in all of the districts.
So there are some on the capital improvement list that are in the Calder, Avery area?
St. Joe River Road, improvements to the road have always been on the capital improvement list just because it's a main highway down there.
Gotcha. Okay.
Can we get a list? Can we have somebody look at the St. Joe River Road like you were talking about? Is basically could go after the bad spots and
absolutely.
Okay. And then maybe we can get an amount and how much it would cost and
sure.
Because I think the main road is really the one that I'm kind of concerned about because I know I've heard a lot of complaints about most traffic.
It's a very high traffic volume. Particularly in the non-snow seasons, but they do get a lot of traffic up there even in the wintertime. Yeah. So I'm happy to do that. I'll get started on that as soon as possible.
And then we can talk about funding when we come back. Okay.
Yeah, and what I'll do is I'll look at, what needs to be addressed and maybe give it a, like a ranking level, like, this is a 5, which I would recommend looking at immediately versus maybe something that's a 3 or a 2 section of that roadway.
Okay.
Yeah, and it wouldn't hurt to look at, right now Calder and Avery are the subject of discussion, but it wouldn't hurt to have, like, if money weren't the issue, what would be the first road in the other districts? What would be the worst couple of roads in the county? As far as if they're going to fail and we're going to end up spending millions to replace them.
Yeah, I would be happy to look at that. I'll look at the roads in all 4 districts and I'll kind of just, supply some information on some of the worst roads, particularly ones that, service a lot of people. Or things that maybe we are not able to do ourselves. One length of roadway that's hasn't had any attention in a really long time that services a lot of people is up in District 1, the Murray District, and that is Pritchard Creek Road, which is the cutoff from Coeur d'Alene River Road up to Murray. That one serves a similar purpose as FH50, St. Joe River Road, in that in the winter months, that roadway is the only route in and out because Kings Pass, snows over and Thompson Pass snows over. It's the same thing down, for the residents of, Avery and Calder down there because they lose all of their other exit areas. So it's just, that's pretty much the one way in and one way out for them as well.
And then we have something already going on the Pritchard Murray Road?
On the Pritchard Murray Road, yes. And we were going to address a 250-foot section of a failed, piece. So, definitely some issues. That's kind of indicative to, kind of how the rest of the road is up there. Okay. But yeah, so I'll go back to the drawing board. We'll look at some things. I'll look at St. Joe River Road and just kind of get a good assessment and some different ideas or pieces of project that we can talk about.
Okay. All right.
Question. You'd mentioned grant funds left over, and just we can go into that later, but a lot of times grants have strings to it, so just kind of curious what those would be. And then
the SLF RF.
Okay, not grant funds.
The sluggers, technically
they're not grants, so that answers it. And SLFRF is gone, so that.
Or maybe it would be
the LATC.
The lettuce.
Okay.
We still have lettuce.
We still have lettuce. So just putting it out there for a project in Calder and Avery, because it started up with me a couple of years ago, but then it just kind of went quiet again. The Calder water system is in really bad shape. So I think being able to use that to partner with, again, priorities and where this falls from what you're hearing from that district, but being able to pair that LATCF with some DEQ funding that's back on the table to get their water system up and running so that they don't have sketchy water, and it's something to consider as well.
Okay. All right.
Sketchy water.
The technical terms.
Yes. Okay.
Perfect.
Any other questions?
No.
I think we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.